a big good morning. As we're a slightly more intimate audience, I hope that this is a thought-provoking discussion for you. I hope that you learn a lot, and I'll be around throughout the conference. So please do grab me, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts and get some feedback from you. So as you can probably tell by my accent, I'm British. I am from London, and I'm also in the process of moving to Copenhagen. So this is a shameless plug for anyone who knows anybody in the Nordic crypto space. Please connect me. I'd love to meet more people out there. I have a decade experience in tech sales. I've been responsible for generating millions and millions of dollars in revenue for various tech SaaS companies that I've worked for. I've also entered crypto back in 2017. And this was at a time where there wasn't really that many people that looked like me in crypto. And aside from the obvious, I am not a software developer, I'm not a coder, I'm not a cryptographer, and I do not have a mining facility in the basement of my house. So I very much have been fascinated with crypto pretty early on, but it was at a time where the words brands and blockchain were on opposite ends of the spectrum. So in 2017, I was fascinated with the opportunity that brands could leverage the blockchain more from a traceability, provenance perspective, particularly in the luxury goods industry. So that's anything from luxury handbags all the way through to diamonds. And this was further augmented by my master's in business and marketing from Warwick Business School. But as I got deeper down into the rabbit hole, I started to see the opportunity for brands to essentially build better connections with their audiences, whether this is through enhanced customer experiences or through potentially generating more revenue. And this leads us to where we are today, the concept of Web3 and how you're starting to see more and more brands looking at Web3 and wanting to enter the space. Now, you'll hear Web3 as a term over the next couple of days, and I wanted to give you a definition of Web3 to kind of help guide you. However, in true nature of decentralization, there is no one definition of Web3. The way that I like to see Web3 is it's the ownership layer of the internet. So I basically position Web3 with three of the most common traits, which are it's about ownership, so ownership verified on the blockchain, through to community. And then finally, Web3 doesn't need to involve crypto. And I think this is a really key point that I want to take you through as we learn about how you can leverage branding in your Web3 strategies. And the other thing that's particularly important when you look at Web3 is it can include anything from non-fungible tokens, so NFTs, all the way through to gaming, the metaverse, entertainment, and so much more. Now, I work at Fireblocks, so I'm a senior account manager. I look after our EMEA region, where I work with hundreds of customers that are essentially looking at ways in which they can improve their digital asset strategies. Something that I really love about Fireblocks is the opportunity to work with such a diverse range of customers. That can be some of the largest banks in the world that are building out digital asset strategies. And trust me, back in 2017, if I thought that a bank would be entering crypto, I would have been like, oh, it doesn't sound like decentralization. But we're seeing, and we need, I think, banks to start regulating the space in some way, shape, or form, all the way through to fintech. So, some of your favorite apps where you can actually buy crypto, all the way through to some of the largest brands and marketing agencies in the world that are working with us to really understand and build out their Web3 strategy. With every brand that's entering Web3, they obviously need building blocks. They need an end-to-end solution so that they can build, they can scale, and they can manage Web3 apps, games, and much, much more. And this is exactly what Fireblocks does. We're a single platform which enables our clients to secure their treasury, to create wallets for users, and manage smart contract operations. And with my work at Fireblocks, I also work as a Web3 consultant where I help a lot of Web3 brands in my own time build out their go-to-market strategies. I'll just be taking you through what it's like and what does it mean to actually brand on the blockchain. So as we can see here, we've got some of the iconic brands in the world entering Web3, starting with NFTs. That's a bit of a tongue twister. And this can be anything from Nike's Swoosh all the way through to Tiffany's CryptoPunks, all the way through to NBA Top Shops, which was essentially the NBA giving video clips, turning them into NFTs, which you can purchase for iconic moments in basketball history. Now, the way that a lot of brands are looking at NFTs and looking at Web3 at the moment is how can we improve either customer experiences or leverage data or assets they may already have that have just been sitting there for years and they could potentially turn into revenue-generating streams for the business. And I think for me, this is kind of what I'm hoping to cover with you, which is, firstly, how can brands utilize Web3? Is it possible to manage a Web3 business without touching crypto? And then also key considerations for implementing. So firstly, we've got Buzz and Woody. The first question that I ask all my clients is, what are you actually trying to achieve? And I think it's really important that you're laser focused on what you want to achieve with Web3. You hear so many words and terms bandied around Web3, NFTs, all of the excitement of crypto. However, it would be irresponsible of me not to mention that obviously there's some risk. There is risk within crypto, particularly when you're looking at NFTs, which are digital representations. They have uniqueness, they have scarcity, and obviously with scarcity drives speculation. And this is evidenced by the big NFT bubble that happened last year, where we are now trading 97% below the highest volumes within NFTs. So I think it's really important for brands to actually really understand why they're entering the space. Are they wanting to enter it because it's a hot, buzzy new word, or are they potentially looking at how they can build these relationships with their clients? And I'd also like to add that a lot of brands today aren't even using the words NFTs. They're really trying to stay away from that. They're using the terms digital collectibles or digital assets in order to signal their entrance into the Web3 space. So the two kind of ways that I like to look at this is, okay, are you trying to achieve customer loyalty or revenue generation? And I wouldn't say that you can't achieve both, but I think if you're entering Web3, you need to decide on one, because if you decide on one, that will enable you to really leverage the most of the Web3 platform or Web3 experience for your customers, and then you can look at them in more detail and start to plan out a wider strategy. So let's start with customer loyalty. And the way that I look at customer loyalty is it has 5 main functions. So firstly, it works IRL. So in real life, it's something that you can bring online to offline. And I think this is a really key element. It's community-based. So it's all about your fan base, your existing customer base. It can be exchanged, it can be traded on all different types of platforms. It is a great way for you to provide unique experiences that spark joy. And then finally, it can cater to different demographics. I think this is really important to consider, is the opportunity for you to unlock digitally native audiences or audiences that you typically wouldn't connect with initially, but actually could be very well aligned to your brand if you start engaging through Web3 and the metaverse. So I'm going to take you through a couple of examples of things that I think work really well. And I think hopefully this should spark some interest from you in terms of, okay, I'm going to use this for my strategy as you start to build it out. So firstly, we have the famous Christian Louboutin, one of my favorite shoe brands in the world. And they did an event where it was an in real life event, and they gifted all guests POAP. POAP stands for Proof of Attendance Protocol. And this is an NFT where people would literally scan a QR code and they were able to mint an NFT right in that moment. And what I love about POAPs is I call them the no strings attached NFT. So you don't need a wallet, you don't need to download Discord, or you don't need to download any of these kind of traditionally Web3 native apps. All you do is you scan a QR code, you enter your email address, and you have a POAP. And what they have been able to do is start generating not only experiences for attendees of the event, but it was a great way for them to kind of give Web2 natives their first step into the world of crypto in a really easy, fun, tangible way. And then we have Estée Lauder, which is a very large beauty brand, and they actually went one step beyond. So they created NFT experience within Decentraland. Decentraland is a blockchain native metaverse. So it's a virtual space where Estée Lauder created a treasure hunt. So the users could go around in Decentraland and collect POAPs at different stations within the Estée Lauder world. And this was a great way for Estée Lauder to almost engage with an audience that I think, is a much younger audience than who Estée Lauder would traditionally engage with, but also provide an opportunity for people to explore Decentraland, which is fairly easy to log in. In addition to this, those who received POAPs were able to utilize them for future discounts and future experiences through the brand themselves. And then we have some other examples as well of different ways in which token-gated rewards and experiences have been leveraged through Web3. And token-gated is literally what it says on the tin. If you have the token, the gates are open. If you don't have a token, you can't get in. So Fly Fish Club, I've created a lot of words today that are quite tongue twisters. So they're actually Web3 natives. They're a members-only dining club. And this is essentially where you can purchase an NFT. That NFT signals ownership. And with that ownership, you're able to access unique dining experiences around the world. The reason why I'm showing this, even though it's not a Web2 native brand, is I believe that we'll have a lot of membership clubs, whether they're the fancy Soho houses of the world, all the way through to potentially gym memberships, which will leverage NFTs, the ability to track, trace, verify ownership in order to get access to different experiences. And then I have Adidas. So Adidas did something really, really smart, where they partnered with an existing Web3 community. So that's Bored Ape Yacht Club. And they essentially enabled the owners of Bored Ape NFTs to actually mint NFTs and get access to an exclusive experience. They also enabled members of different types of NFT communities to also get access to mint this, the inaugural Adidas NFT. And what's fascinating about this was you got the NFT, it was really difficult to get, and it was at a time where gas fees were super, super high, but you were able to mint the NFT. Then not only would you get access to digital merchandise, you'd also get physical merchandise sent to you in the post. And they sent this like super bright canary yellow tracksuit to people. If I had one, I would have worn it today, but don't think it quite matches my outfit. But what was fascinating is it had a QR code, and the QR code meant that you could log into Snapchat, you could scan the QR code, and then you were also able to customize your tracksuit within the augmented reality filters. And I think Adidas did something really smart. They took something that was natively Web3, then they brought it into the real IRL, into real life, and then they brought it back into almost Web2. So it was a chance for people that maybe are Web3 natives, they're showing off their tracksuit, but then they're showing it off in a platform that a lot of their friends that maybe aren't Web3 natives could understand and be like, oh my God, that's super cool. Like, how did you get that tracksuit? How does it change within the AR filters? And I think that's a great way to generate buzz and excitement. And then finally, we've got FC Barcelona, obviously one of the world's, I was going to say greatest football clubs, although I'm an Arsenal supporter, so I have to be careful about that. Barca fans could basically vote on club decisions utilizing blockchain-based fan tokens, and this is in partnership with Socios. And it was a chance for Barcelona to leverage their existing fan base, which is obviously huge and it's around the world, where people could purchase fan tokens. And with those fan tokens, they could vote on governance. And that could be anything from what mural should they have in the stadium all the way through to potentially sustainability goals as well. And I've chosen these three examples. We've go from Web3, to Web3, and then to Web2. So it's like, how can you leverage what you may already have to start to build out a fascinating Web3 strategy? And then we've got digital twins. So digital twins are super interesting. It's basically a verifiable version or physical version of the NFT in the real world. And we have two examples, Dolce & Gabbana, another luxury goods brand. And you'll notice I'm giving lots of references to luxury goods brands or beauty brands because I feel like they're probably some of the most innovative within the space. They have the marketing budget to really be experimental. And I think they're great people to learn from because you can almost copy and replicate that within the types of brands or experiences. So they launched a collection of NFTs, 9 NFTs with 3D models of what clothes could look like. They enabled people to mint them, only 9s, or to bid for them. And then if you bid, then you were able to get an exclusive experience, be flown out to Italy and have 9 seamstresses create these incredible outfits for you. I think Dolce & Gabbana were quite smart with this because they tried to attract the newly minted crypto millionaires, so people that were, minting Bitcoin, Ethereum back in 2013 that maybe weren't that interested in, D&G at all, but the ability to own a super unique NFT, which had a 3D rendering of the outfit that you actually purchased, and then you could buy it for yourself or for your other half, I think is, really fascinating with how they leveraged their own experiences and made it in a way that is true to their brand and their identity. Then we have Breitling. Breitling is a luxury watch brand, and they have instead cater to their Web2 native audience. So with every watch that is purchased now with Breitling, it comes with an NFT. And to be honest, I think a lot of people don't actually know this themselves, but what Breitling have done is that they understand a lot of watch owners want to be anonymous. And I think that's a struggle that marketers are having today, is privacy is a huge issue because you can't really understand how your clients are engaging with you in the same way as, let's say, 10 years ago where GDPR, for example, wasn't so much of an issue. So Breitling have enabled NFT to be linked to the watch, which means that every time the watch is taken in for service or every time the watch changes ownership, the NFT can also be updated as well. And that's a great way for the brand to really understand the customer journey of the watch as well. And obviously it has a lot of their provenance details on the watch. And then, okay, so we've done customer loyalty. Now let's talk about money. So revenue generation. So look, revenue generation, the way that I like to see it is you can either you can generate direct revenue or indirect revenue. Direct revenue is similar to Nike. So Nike generated $180 million in primary and secondary sales alone through the NFT market. This is huge. And they've also more recently launched Nike.Swoosh, which is their own version of a ENS domain. And essentially, Nike are entering the metaverse, and I think you'll find a lot of kind of sports brands are entering the metaverse with a proposition to potentially sell digital collectibles. So, cool trainers, cool tracksuits that can potentially be used in the future on blockchain-based games. I think this works for Nike because they're culture, and I think Web3 is culture. I've got loads of thoughts on this, which I won't spend time talking about today. Nike have been able to do this really well because they are at the epicenter of culture, whether that's the Air Force Ones, Jordans, Air Jordans, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have Starbucks. So Starbucks have done something really cool with the launch of Starbucks Odyssey, which is this gamified treasure hunt where you would go and not only learn more about the Starbucks story, where you're learning more about coffee, but you also have the opportunity to try out new Starbucks products. So there are several levels, and with each level, you have to complete a certain number of tasks, and each level, you're also gifted an NFT. But Nike have done something super fascinating Starbucks have done something super fascinating by enabling their customers to go into store, because this is one of the tasks that they have to achieve, try out new products. And of course, that's generating indirect revenue for Starbucks. So there's not an obvious thing. Starbucks aren't trying to sell NFTs, but what they are trying to do is encourage a much deeper relationship with the customer through their story. So obviously, how do you manage Web3 without touching crypto? And I'm going to skip this one. I think I don't have my most updated PowerPoint. But what we do have is that, look, you actually don't really need to touch crypto if you're entering Web3. You can either choose to outsource this all fully, which I wouldn't recommend for you to do, or you can find different ways where you can fund operations and crypto payments in a really easy to use, just where you literally just need the crypto to make gas transfers, or where you just need to mint it. And I think this is really useful for brands that are looking to enter the space, because obviously you don't want to have to deal with the regulatory, the compliance, the custody issues that typically are associated with crypto. So don't be scared. Like, genuinely, there are ways in which you can minimize your exposure to crypto as much as possible. So what are the key considerations for implementing Web3? So I think the first point that I would make is, okay, like, you don't need to enter Web3 and think that you're going to generate revenue. And I think this is a mistake that we've seen. Porsche, for example, they launched an NFT drop at the start of this year where they were selling 7,000 NFTs for roughly $1,000 a piece. They ended up having to pull the entire NFT collection offline. Firstly, because they didn't do a marketing campaign. They didn't do any campaigns to actually engage the native Web3 audiences. But secondly, like, Porsche's business line is not to sell NFTs. Like, they could have created an absolutely incredible experience around the Porsche story, and really, built deeper relationships with fans without actually having to say, okay, this is a great way for us to generate X million dollars in revenue, because we've seen Nike do it. And I think actually the future of Web3 is not by directly selling NFTs. But what we're also seeing is, like, Web3 is being built on Web2 infrastructure, and we've got 3 examples here of how much money is being lost within the wider world of crypto. And obviously, if you're a Web3 brand or a Web2 brand, you're entering the space, you're growing really quickly, there's a financial incentive for hackers to come in and try and find a way to hack your infrastructure. And obviously, Web2 infrastructure is not set up. And obviously, security is really important, particularly in Web3. It needs to be a top priority. And I think ensuring that your assets, that your fan base or your customers' assets are secure, at rest, and in motion is the top priority for you. And the way I kind of look at this is, like, security is like super paramount. You also want to ensure that you're creating a time to market advantage. You want to think about future use cases as well. So it needs to be scalable, it needs to be efficient, it needs to easily integrate with your existing applications. And then, of course, have a fantastic customer experience and onboarding. And I'm going to take you through a few examples that I've done with some customers. So this is Flipkart. Flipkart is one of the largest e-commerce sites in India. So they're similar to the Walmart of India. And something that the team at Fireblocks did was they worked with Flipkart on creating Firedrops, which is a loyalty-based NFT program. They created an incredible user experience. Why? Because no one needed to download a wallet. No one needed to remember a seed phrase or a passphrase. All you needed to do was to enter your email address, and then voila, your NFT was minted. There are ways in which you can create a user experience that is native to your customers. And I think the biggest challenge that Web3 has today is potentially forcing customers to, like, download wallets, where in reality, they don't need to. There are plenty of other ways in which you can help them build a wallet using social logins or using tools that they are also familiar with. And then CaixaBank. So CaixaBank is a large bank in Spain. They did a really interesting project with us where they wanted to acquire new customers. 2 major concerns for marketing brands are cost of customer acquisition and then also privacy. We've touched upon privacy. Cost of customer acquisition is CaixaBank were like, okay, we are going to create a campaign where we will encourage potential users to come and deposit 1 month's salary in CaixaBank. And if they did that, we will give them an NFT. And in addition, that NFT will represent us removing tons of plastic from the ocean. So there were 3 links. They built this on an on a sustainable-based blockchain. There are loads of blockchains out there. I don't have time to talk about what blockchains you should look at and consider, but definitely something to talk about at some point in the future. And they created an experience where they gifted people, potentially new consumers that never considered CaixaBank before, but with the sustainability angle and this NFT technological angle, they were able to attract them. And they also linked this in with their Salesforce backend as well. And I think this is something where it's like, okay, how can you leverage the existing tools that you have, that you're utilizing within your marketing campaigns, and start to use that to better understand your customers? And then finally, we've got Fortress. They are a gaming company based out in the US. They needed a battle-tested tokenization infrastructure that would enable them to protect their smart contracts from cyber attacks and obviously internal collusion and human error. So they, rather than deciding to build something in-house, they decided to work with Fireblocks. And this is a key thing, like, guys, do not build wallet infrastructure in-house. Like, don't waste your time. Work with some of the best infrastructure providers in the space that enable you to do your job properly. Your job is understanding the brand, is creating the best customer experience for your customers as possible. Basically just don't build in-house. Like, there are plenty of really strong brands and organizations out there that can give you the security that you need and give you the ability to actually scale as and when you want. And also, you've got to think about the future. So you eventually will probably get to a point where you'll start moving over to an infrastructure provider. So why not start now? And that's me. I've got roughly, I think, 4 minutes or so for questions. So I hope you've learned something. Obviously, I'll be around for the conference, but I've got roughly 4 minutes. So if you have any questions, thank you all so much for your time. This is my QR code to my LinkedIn as well, so please add me. I totally appreciate you all being here, and thank you so much to the organizers. It's my first time in Zagreb, so I feel so fortunate, and thank you.
Thank you, Soraya. You were really wonderful. We do have a couple of questions. I think you did address some of them during your presentation, but I would like to encourage the audience, if you do have any additional questions, please submit them through Slido while we address these. So one of the questions is, in your opinion, what is the biggest blocker or maybe the biggest challenge for brands adopting and entering into Web3? What are they afraid of the most?
I think it's the word crypto, to be honest. I think crypto's scary because obviously we've seen either hacks. We obviously had huge events last year with FTX, with the Terra Luna crash. There's a lot of volatility within the market. That being said, there are bad actors in the market. And I believe that this is the antithesis of blockchain or crypto. I believe that with more banks entering the space, and you would have seen with Fireblocks, we work with some of the largest banks in the world, regulation is coming in. I actually believe that will restore interest and the ability to want to be within Web3. But as I also said, is like, you don't need to really touch crypto if you're building out a Web3 experience. Web3 is about the blockchain. It's not necessarily about crypto. And you can create amazing experiences for your consumers where they can purchase NFTs in dollars. They don't need to actually own Bitcoin and Ethereum or other types of tokens to purchase.
Absolutely, thank you. Another question that just came in, do you see a future where companies aren't afraid of showing the crypto side of Web3?
I see a future where you will have some of the largest organizations in the world having a treasury department which owns crypto, and they are hedging, and they have potentially a crypto trading inside their treasury department where they are also generating revenue off crypto. I don't think that's now. I think that's when we start seeing banks coming in, CBDCs, so digital currencies that are issued by governments. But I definitely see a future where brands will talk about it, but that's because we will talk about it. And it all starts with the consumer. So it's something that we're comfortable with. When we have the digital euro or the digital dollar, we'll start seeing more and more brands entering.
That makes sense. One more thing that you actually have addressed, but maybe if you can point out, what do you think is the biggest mistakes brands nowadays do when they're trying to enter Web3?
Yeah, I would say thinking you can generate revenue. To be honest, it's not your main line of business. Focus on ensuring that your customer can have the most fun, create an experience that's really true to who you are, and be creative. But I gave a whole load of case studies there, so I think hopefully that can also encourage you to start thinking in different ways as to how you can really leverage Web3. And of course, I'm here as well, so come find me. I do consultancy as well, so I'm always happy to help work out with you.
Wonderful. We have time for one more question. So how long do you think how much time do you think needs to pass until crypto becomes, let's say, secure without crashing like Luna or FTX?
So I would rephrase that and say, okay, it depends on bad actors. So there are individuals that were responsible, and I think also it's also on other individuals that perhaps didn't do the research and didn't question them more. I believe with MiCA, so that's a large European regulation that's coming in, and obviously you have the SEC that's paying huge attention over in the US in terms of crypto. I believe that with regulation, it creates boundaries and it prevents bad actors from wanting to enter the space. How soon? It could be anything in the next 2 years. But we're starting to see it today more and more of my customers, for example, German customers, BaFin, is paying huge attention on how they're interacting within the ecosystem. So I think it's got the eyes of the government, and maybe that's the shift. Unfortunately, a huge number of people were affected personally by these huge disasters within the space. But hopefully that also pushes governments to, yet again, this antithesis of crypto blockchain, but we kind of need we need regulation in the space.
Regulation and education, definitely.
Precisely.
Yes.
Precisely.
Thank you so much, Soraya. It was lovely having you.
Thank you.